coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Come on along and welcome aboard to Indiana Sports Beat. We'll welcome in as we're coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday, July 9th. Dustin DePerrick back with us, sitting in on the program today. Sharpshooting Nick Zeisloff. Dustin Schutte has stepped in to join us, talk about some Big Ten football as well. Lots to get to. Dustin DePerrick, how are you, sir?
Doing well, sir. How about you?
Cannot complain. Another day, not a lot of change, but a lot of things are going on. A lot more sports information is starting to come out, at least. A lot more things are happening, but there was one big thing, and you can't ignore the Ivy League, as predicted, shut down their sports until January 1st. I don't know that that's going to have much bearing on the Power Five, but that's a big deal. I mean, They were the first to do it last year, and they're the first to do it again.
Yeah, no, it's something, I guess, as we said the other day, there's a bunch of reasons why it becomes a flashpoint. I mean, I think one thing, as you mentioned, it's, hey, this is what the smart people are doing. So, regardless, everybody else has to look at that. And obviously, the Ivy League is in a different place than everybody else. They have these huge endowments. I mean, they are the most famous academic institutions in the country. And they are not the most famous because of their football programs, because of their basketball teams. That's not why they got to be a big deal. They produced presidents and Supreme Court justices and congressmen and senators and doctors and everything else. So, that makes them, makes them visible this way. And it also makes them, their money doesn't all come from sports. They can live without sports and still be extraordinarily rich. And again, they're still going to charge, I think, like all of their tuition is still going to be $50K regardless, or whatever it is to go to an Ivy League school. You're still going to have to pay that, even though you're probably not coming to campus and you're not going to be watching football when you're there. They can still do that. A lot of state schools can't do that. Those Big Five schools. So there's still different motivations, obviously, for the Power Five. But the one thing they have to look at is say, okay, there is still a perception to it, because it's like, and I saw this quote in the athletics piece by Nicole Auerbach. I think there was a football coach or a Power Five commissioner, I can't remember which, but said basically, we're like, if they do this, if they push it back, we're going to look bad. We're going to look like we don't care about our kids as much, that it's about the money for us. And it's the thing is, again, the Ivy League doesn't need it. But it looks like, okay, the Power Five, because they need the money, they're willing to put their kids in a dangerous situation. So it's like, okay, like it just doesn't put you in great shape from a perception standpoint. Now, that only goes so far, because I do think just the American public is looking at this like, we got to do something close to normalcy here, and we can't, for as deadly and scary as this virus is, we can't kill everything. We've already, we've given it 3 months, we've given it 4 months, we bought into this, but it's like, okay, like how much economic destruction is there willing to be? How do we find a balance here? And we're going to be willing to be creative, but ultimately, can we shut down everything until you get a vaccine? It's like, okay, what's still going to be there if you do? If you go 6 months, a year, and further, again, you're already seeing sports go under, as you saw with Stanford yesterday, against Stanford, that's sort of place like Harvard or whatever that even though it's not an Ivy League school, it has the same kind of reputation. And they just got so many sports. Now, some of those you're looking at, it's like, well, you guys had a sailing program. That seems like, it seems over the top. It seems not egregious, but, not superfluous, but a lot. It's just like there's just not a lot of people who have sailing programs. I mean, men's volleyball is a big deal at Stanford. It's a big deal in California. For them to have to get rid of that program, that tells you a lot about where things are going. And it's just like, okay, like if you take a football season out of that, economically, and you lose that much cash flow, how many people get hurt? And it's sports, it's athletes, it's, and it's staffers and everything. I mean, Vanderbilt had to get rid of its sports information department. They just absorbed that and said, the communications part of the school is going to take over for sports information. So all those people who run that show are out of a job. And so it's like, okay, like how you do have to balance the level of unemployment with the spread of this disease. And you can complain all you want about, okay, who should have fixed it by this point because other countries are in better shape. But you still have to make these decisions going forward. How do you find a way, to keep getting at least part of these income streams so you can keep a lot of these businesses going and you're not sending a lot of people into unemployment? And so it's just like everyone's trying to balance things, but the Ivy League making this decision is still a big deal. It's still a domino that falls. Every other domino has to decide whether or not it falls. But it is going to affect somebody. There is going to be an impact. There is going to be a perceptive impact going forward. And for some people who are afraid of playing, it gives them permission. If they don't feel like they're ready, it gives them permission to do it. Someone's already started it and someone's already developing a plan. So if someone else decides they want to fall in line, another conference, another school, they have somebody to look to. So it's not going to have zero impact. Now, again, does it change the whole world? Don't know, but it is going to have an impact.
Yeah, you mentioned Stanford, and they cut, 11 sports yesterday.
Yep.
Now, one thing that also we have to mention, they had 36 sports at the time. Indiana has, 24? It's actually 36 is double the national average. But it's still, they had them before this, but there's a lot of schools that were probably teetering on dropping certain programs prior to the pandemic hitting. And I'd say some of these were one of them. But I am surprised about the men's volleyball out there because that's a huge deal. That shocked me, to be honest with you. I'm like, wow, really? They can't find something else to get rid of? I'm sure that goes back to Title IX.
But they also cut field hockey. So those were the two that sort of that really lit me up was field hockey and men's volleyball, because men's volleyball matters out there. It's a big time sport. It's like, and they cut wrestling. And I was surprised they still had wrestling, to be honest, because it's so regional. Wrestling is a monster.
More of a Western thing, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a big deal. There's like a T, goes out to sort of the East Coast, comes down the middle of the country is sort of where wrestling matters. Through in the plain states of Oklahoma and Iowa and all that. So I wasn't shocked. I forgot that there still is a presence in the Pac-12 in wrestling. Arizona State used to be a big deal. Arizona State has a pretty good wrestling program and has had some guys that were big deals. I remember I covered college wrestling when I was a freshman at Penn State. So I got sort of an education, and then I grew up in Pennsylvania, so it's a big deal there. And even though I didn't do it, I was not a wrestling guy. I learned about it especially from friends of mine who were really good at it in high school. I kind of knew where it stands, but there were some Arizona State people that were really good. But you figure, okay, that's a sport that really took a hit, when Title IX really started to move. So I was surprised that they were still there. But like men's volleyball, they're good at. And field hockey, again, is one of those sports that helps you even out when it comes to Title IX. Those sports always help your cause. Any women's sport helps your cause. And there were some women's sports that got lit up in there. So that just told me something. It's just like, okay, it's obviously not just a Title IX issue. So it matters. You have to consider Title IX in there, and so you have to get rid of some men's sports, and men's sports were going to take the hit. But again, a sport like men's volleyball really tells you something that's standing out there. And like you said, and Stanford is one of those schools that has a reputation for being good at everything. They've won the most national championships of any school, I believe. I'd believe that. It might be them or UCLA. I think they're up there, and they're always winning like the Sears Cup, the Sears National Championship, where you kind of put all of the sports together. Stanford's always up there because they're always good at so many things. They're just really they're very academically oriented, but they spread their sort of athletic talent around. They're always decent at football. They've had a lot of great basketball teams. Even if they're not. I think they were going to be a tournament team this year. I think they kind of picked it back up.
Golf.
Golf. Women's basketball has always been really good. Track, cross country has always been really good. Both volleyballs have always been really good. So Stanford just has one of those reps for being a top of the line, across the board, well-rounded athletic department. And for Stanford to take a hit, you're like, man. Like that's something, that is a school that cares about it. And for them to take a hit tells you a lot of what's going on here.
Talk about wrestling. Are you familiar with Indiana's wrestling history?
Some of it, I know Angelo. I mean, Escobedo.
Well, they were something before World War II.
Right.
Before World War II, if you go in there, you'll see they were a dominant Big Ten wrestling champion. Oh, yeah. I mean, and then all of a sudden World War II comes and it's over. And there's been nothing since. But I mean, it's like they had several Big Ten titles before World War II, and all of a sudden, boom, and it's over from there. But
it's been tough to get it back up. There's been a lot of good wrestlers in that program. I remember when I would dawdle and covering it, like right after Escobedo was there, and now that he's back coaching. But they had some really good guys, but then they're in the Big Ten. Like it's that loaded. You got Penn State and Iowa and Minnesota and Ohio State and the Michigans. I mean, there's just it is tough to get it together in the Big Ten. It is tough to rise up in that conference in wrestling more than maybe any other sport. It's so dominant.
Indiana Elite will be playing in the Midwest Invitational this weekend. There's several games. I'm going to be going up to watch. I'll see Trey Kaufman and Logan Duncombe at least play this weekend. So looking forward to that, talking to those guys. So there's some stuff going on, at least for Indiana fans. If they're players, they can't see them practicing, but at least their prospects are out there getting it. Right. You've got those kids going. So they're not getting the AAU summer, but we're getting some of this. I know they played a couple of weeks ago, the Ed games, and now you got more tournaments this weekend, starting to loosen up a little bit. But is it going to be enough for some of these kids that are on the borderline of getting a scholarship? Some of these guys are going to get left out in the cold, it seems like.
Yeah, I don't know about left out in the cold, but I mean, I think the bigger issue is that you're not going to get what you deserve in certain cases, and there'll probably still be somebody who finds them, and it more likely than not, I would think it's going to be people that are. I think a lot of kids are that are on that borderline are going to have to stay local. And maybe there's a better spot for somebody, a better fit for somebody, out of state someplace that might not see them. I think that's really the biggest issue is that, people that if you need a point guard and you're North Florida or somebody like that, you might not know there's a kid in the Midwest that you need. That really fits your cause, that you could go to an AAU tournament and see him and be like, whoa, that guy. That guy's what I want.
I always use a great example is OG Anunoby when Tom Crean found him. He wasn't even listed on the AAU roster of where he was going to watch him play. A lot of kids out there.
A guy I always my sort of number one AAU work story, because I mean they're always AAU gets so much slander, just so much. And even though really it's not even the AAU doing it, we use AAU as shorthand. I don't even Amateur Athletic Union barely has a hand in this anymore, but we just say that.
Oh, it's shoe basketball. Shoe basketball.
Shoe basketball. That's a good way of putting it. Grassroots is a term that we started to use. Aaron Harris, ERON from Lawrence North I will just never forget how much of a leap he made in the course of a weekend at the Adidas Invitational back in 2010, 2011. So this was the summer that Yogi Ferrell, I think it was 2011. Yogi Ferrell, Hunter Perea, Jeremy Hollowell all played together on an Adidas team. And this is when everyone thought Hollowell and Perea were going to be good. So there was a period where they were both top 50 guys and they were studs and they were, so this is Adidas Invitational at the time in first week of July when that tournament was loaded, that had everybody. And Harris in the span of a weekend got nobody had ever heard of him on the big scale. By the end of the weekend, he had offers from Wisconsin and West Virginia because he was just so good of a complimentary piece for those guys. Ended up playing at West Virginia, bounced around a little bit, but still made a big leap. And it's like, that's not in the cards for anybody this year.
Yeah. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, the Washington NFL team. I guess I don't even want to say their name anymore because they're going to be changing their name. I saw Amazon.
And it is a slur. It is and it's always been a slur.
That's why I don't even. I used to casually say it so easily. Now right. I'm like, I'm trying to catch myself. I'm like, I don't say it. Yeah. So, but Amazon pulled their merchandise. That's huge. That's the largest online retail seller in the entire universe in all of the solar system. And that's a big one. They've already had some major hits, but that's kind of like that. There's no way that this stuff's happening now. The name change is coming. but Dan Snyder is going kicking and screaming into this.
Which you knew he was going to do, and he's been doing the whole time. And it's just it's so far. And we can't sit there and act like, okay, this is all Dan Snyder's fault. Like, this was the name way before he got it. It never should have been that in the first place. It never should have got this far. You know, as we were talking to Bob Kravitz yesterday. I mean, in the 80s, it was still obvious that this thing needed to go. I mean, we're so far past the time that this should even be remotely acceptable. But yeah, no, Dan Snyder is also kicking and screaming, and it again tells you. I mean, the word cancel culture gets thrown out a whole lot at this point, and there's a lot of things to be said for whether it's going too far. But the thing that really comes down to it is people don't change if there's not a monetary motivation. They just don't. Right. You know, if things are what they are, there is no inertia that brings change that's not monetary. Like, it's just if you don't know that you're going to get hit financially, you leave things as they are. And so someone has to make it abundantly clear that you're going to lose a ton of money if you keep going down this path. So you could call that whatever you want to call that, but that's how you move mountains, is to say, all right, people have to step in and say, I can't be a part of this anymore. I can't keep giving you money if you're going to keep doing this. And eventually that's what forces you to change. It's saying financially, this is just not the right decision anymore.
There's an Indiana Sports Beat Radio coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this Thursday. It's July 9th. Nick Zeisloff is going to join us next. Dustin Apiric is sitting in with us. We're back with all that and more right after this.
She's popping right out of the South Georgia water. Oh, good Lord, she had them long 10 legs. Couldn't help myself, so I walked up and said,
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Ryan Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic, safe, effective, even money-saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios here on this Thursday. Dustin DePerick sitting in with me, and Nick Zeisloff joining us now, former sharpshooting Hoosier. Nick, how are you, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate you joining us. Got Dustin DePerick here as well.
How you doing there?
Hey, Nick, so I know you were on a team heading into right before the pandemic hit, and then, of course, the pandemic hits and it shuts everything down. Are you still going to be playing when we come out of this? What's up next for you?
I don't know what's up next for me. I'm hoping to sign a contract here whenever it comes. At this point in the basketball world, you just learn to be patient, and just the right thing comes at the right time. So right now, just free agent in the off season. We were able to finish the season in Spain. That's where I was. But yeah, it was kind of a weird situation. I was there for 12 days before it shut down, and then I had to wait 3 months to play my actual first game. I was 2 days away from playing my first game when everything pretty much shut down in Europe. And then had to wait much longer after that.
Man, I know there's a lot of guys, former Hoosiers, that are playing all over the place in different countries and whatnot. And we've been talking about the TBT, of course, because it's going on right now. And every time I have somebody on, whether it's Jordan Hulls or Will Sheehy or whomever, man, somebody's got to get an IU alumni team up together in this thing.
I agree. It would be awesome. It makes me think about it even more when my buddy Michael Tulip for Illinois tried to get me on the Illinois team. I saw they just had a win yesterday, but it's interesting. My home state now finally wants me to play for their team, but it's interesting how that works. But I think I chose the right school in the end of the day, and the right school, IU, came in the works anyway. So yeah, us IU boys need to get our stuff together and see if we can make that happen at some point. Some guys. For me personally, this summer wouldn't be a smart one to do. You just need to rest at times. It's a fun tournament to play in. Obviously, who wouldn't want to try to win $1 million? But one team of the 64 does. So at the end of the day, you got to kind of think about it from a rest standpoint, especially since we just finished our season. June 25th was our last game. So you never know how fast the turnaround could be at this point. So you just got to kind of take a smart decision at that, right now. So we'll see if we can get one next year. We'll see if we could organize that.
Yeah, when I talk to all these guys, everybody's all are like you are very enthused about doing it. But first of all, you got to have somebody who has to go through all that work and putting it together. And then you've got all the different schedules with guys playing in so many different places. So I know there's a lot of difficulty to it, but it would be cool to see, Dustin. And I know the fans would love to see that. And Indiana is just one of those programs that you expect that from.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a surprise they haven't done it. Nick, I just wanted to ask more. I mean, you mentioned this, getting back and the season just started. I mean, what was it like to go back to playing in Europe? Basically, what was the scene like? And just give me an idea, just what it was like for basketball to function out there. Just after the sort of initial wave of the pandemic.
It was great. I mean, the process took some time. We had to first start doing individual workouts where only one of us could be on half the court at a time, and one of us could be in the weight room at a time. And then we started getting a 5-on-0. So you're trying to limit the, how many people were together at one point, and then we went 5-on-5 practices. And at that point, we're like, all right, if we're going 5-on-5 practice, we're probably going to do this thing. So it was a great tournament put on in Valencia, and just being one of the few leagues to play at that time, one of the first leagues back. I think Germany was the first, we were the second. It was something cool, something special to be able to say that. So our team didn't do as well as we wanted to, but at the same time, it was special to be one of the few teams to play first and a few leagues to play first out of this whole ordeal. Just in general, just walking around, how are things different in Europe
in regards to the pandemic than you're seeing here? I mean, what's, I guess you're back. I mean, what kind of difference are you seeing in terms of just how people are going about their day-to-day lives handling this thing?
Well, those first 6-7 weeks, you did not leave your place unless you were going to the grocery store. There was some essential work, personnel out, but not much. Then we started reopening, but it was like, it was very strict, and even I was on the islands down south, the Canary Islands, and we had very few cases, and they were even sticking to all of correct protocols that mainland Spain was, and it was a lot worse in the Catalan region, Barcelona, Madrid areas. So it was just interesting to see how strict everyone was taking it, even on the islands where it was very remote and very few cases. So obviously here we're not doing too great right now, and it's almost like everyone's just trying to get back to normal life, but things are getting worse. So I don't know what's going to happen here coming forward. It's interesting to see the two continents and how they, obviously our two countries too, how the differences of it for sure.
Just the fear of being in another country. I cannot imagine on the onset of this thing when it first happened of being someplace else, because I've traveled. I've been. There's some trepidation when you're in another country of just general life, and I cannot imagine when something like this were to go full-fledged and to be out of the country. Just a scary thing for people.
No doubt about that. We the remoteness of the island was nice and secure and safe. At the same time, how do we get anywhere? Am I taking a boat back to America, or am I gonna be able to get a flight to Spain? That was in the first few months or these few weeks, I was pretty nervous. Not gonna lie, but you just gotta realize everything's gonna happen for a reason, and things will work out.
So with this offseason, kind of an unplanned offseason now, what have you been doing to stay in shape? How are you trying to get back there? You've been able to rehab and get some workouts in. I know that's also been tough for guys, or at least it was in the beginning, to find a place to be able to do all that they needed to do.
Yeah, I'm still only a week, almost not even 2 weeks back at this point. So I'm still trying to get in my rhythm with where the workouts are going to take place and what workouts I'm going to be doing. I haven't done much basketball recently. Sometimes your body just needs some rest, but staying mobile, keeping the mobility right, and then just little workouts here and there. It's a long season, and you just got to be smart with how you work your body. I used to be the guy that just first day, 2 days later, I'm back in the gym shooting, running, cutting. Now it's taken. I'm 27. I got to be a little smarter. I'm not old, but I'm not young. To the point where you just got to be smart with what you're doing and take care of your body first.
Dustin?
Yeah, no. How do you think this is just going to change your entire rhythm going forward? I mean, just the fact that you had to go away from it, come back. What is different about your sort of long-term plan as opposed to what it usually is? I mean, usually at this point, you've been resting for a while. You've had time. Now to work it back up, then kind of fade back again. How are you just sort of changing your entire off-season program to just make up for the fact that you had to take that much time off and then play at this point in the year?
Yeah, there's so much uncertainty still with when seasons are going to start, if they're going to start, if Americans are going to be allowed to travel back to Europe. It really puts a wrench in a lot of off-season plans. At this point, just take care of the problems, the health issues that have been continuing to improve for me. But I've had some things that I've been trying to fix. So right now, that's really the only goal. When the next contract comes in, then I might have to tweak the game plan a bit. It's just all of us basketball players. We know sports are going to continue. That's the thing. People want them to. Leagues want them to. Organizations, teams, everything wants to continue. It's just a matter of how and when. So the when is the big question right now. But I'd probably be more worried about it in my earlier years. I've just finished my 4th year pro, and I learned a lot about patience this year. So whatever happens, happens. So we'll just keep on going.
Normally, are you able to follow Indiana during the season? I know when you're out of the country, I know talking to these guys, sometimes it's difficult, but with all the technology, most guys don't have too much trouble keeping up. Are you able to watch and getting the games in?
Not too many when overseas. I think I watched one or two when I was in Lithuania and then Rome and Spain my first and second year overseas. One of those being the Butler game in the Fieldhouse, which was a great finish, obviously. And then, the Notre Dame one was probably another one too, where J-Mo had the finisher. But this year was tough. I was in Santa Cruz, and it seemed like it was so early being there in California time. It was almost like easier to watch games in Europe at that time difference than it was being that far ahead in California. I wasn't used to watching games when I was in California with the Santa Cruz Warriors, so it's hard to. But I mean, and also now with not many guys being on a team that I know, it's also different as well. So,
are you home in Illinois now?
Yep, good old Chicago. Hopefully, the Windy City isn't too disrupting the volume or anything. I hope you guys can hear me well.
Well, I hope so. But man, Nick, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out to join us today. And I hope that everything kind of gets back to at least starting up where you guys can get over, because we love following you guys. And I know everyone has to get in shape, but hopefully we'll check back with you and see how everything goes. But I cannot thank you enough.
That sounds good, man. Thank you guys for having me again, and you guys take care.
Thank you, sir. Nick Zeisloff, former Hoosier, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat on this Thursday. We've got Dustin DePere joining us, and Dustin Schutte going to be on us next. We're going to talk some Big Ten football. Stay tuned. We're coming back with more to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
I'm Rain Shaddy, and I'm a Hoosier. As a toddler, you could always find me running around in a cream and crimson onesie and a red IU hat reminiscent of those worn during the world-famous William Tell timeout, shouting, "Go Hoosiers!" Like many other alum, I chose to make Bloomington my home. As a civic and alumni leader, I have become very knowledgeable about our community and would love to share my insights with you as your realtor. Find me on Facebook or call or text me, Ryan Shaddy, with FC Tucker Bloomington Realtors at 765-623-9093.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary. Indiana Sports Beat is now a part of the Rivals Network. You can go to thehoosier.com to sign up. It's free. Catch the show there each day live or at your convenience. You can also like or follow us on Facebook, follow the show's rebroadcast anywhere you podcast. If we're not on a radio station where you live, we should be. Let your local station know they need to carry Indiana Sports Beat with Coyle and Leary, or simply go to thehoosier.com.
Some of the best sounds you'll ever hear are generic. Safe, effective, even money saving, just like FDA-approved generic drugs. Even if they don't come in the exact same color or shape as their brand name equivalents, they have the same key ingredients and go through a rigorous review process. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist today and visit fda.gov/generic drugs. Generics are safe, effective, and can save you money. You'll like the sound of that.
Hey, this is Jordan Halls, former Indiana Hoosier. Keep up with Indiana sports on Indiana Sports Beat.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry.
Turn all of the lights on over every boy and every girl.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios on this Thursday, joined now by Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Dustin, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well, Jim. How are you?
Doing fine. Dustin DePerrick is sitting in here with us as well, talking all things now Big Ten football with you. What's new in the league? Ohio State shut things down yesterday. I saw that. They were kind of the first one to get things started, and to see them now shut that down, not the most positive thing that you want to see.
No, and I think the biggest reason maybe for concern right now with Ohio State is the fact that they're not releasing any of the numbers. They're not releasing the test numbers. They're not releasing the positive case numbers. So you really don't know what the situation is. Are they pausing these voluntary workouts out of an abundance of caution, or is there a major outbreak on campus? And while I certainly understand a university or a school's reason behind, kind of hiding those numbers, I guess, to protect health information and for the student athletes, coaches, and staff, I think at this time you need at least some clarity as to why you're shutting things down, because right now assumptions are going wild, and now it looks like there's a bleak outlook for the college football season, at least in the fall, and at least as a 12-game schedule is considered. So, it's just an interesting situation. It's even more interesting knowing that Ohio State is not releasing any of the numbers, or really they're just kind of playing it close to the vest. So you don't know if they're doing this out of an abundance of caution, or if there's a real problem in Columbus. Because like you said, Ohio State was one of the first schools to be all gung-ho about, returning to campus. And they started their voluntary workouts on June 8th and have done some, had their protocols and guidelines in place for COVID-19. So it's just an interesting situation, and we'll see. They're the first Big Ten school to shut things down. We'll see if any others follow.
Yeah, Dustin DePerrick, Ohio State, we look at them, you think of Clemson and all these other big-time programs that have had large numbers, and it's probably, even though that Indiana came in with a nice big goose egg on their testing, Ohio State, their recruiting is a lot more wider base. The kids are a lot more spread out, so it's probably a pretty good indication they've got some pretty good numbers going on over there.
Yeah, no, you'd think so. I mean, Dustin, what you mentioned just feeling like there's a bleak outlook. I mean, you had to presume going in that there were going to be some positive tests, that this thing wasn't going to go off entirely without a hitch. And there had to be some willing of leeway for some shutting down and stuff early on. I mean, do you feel like from this suggests a bleak outlook for there being a season? Does this feel like something that that people should have expected to happen, that you were going to have some shutdowns and some, stumbles early on? I mean, how do you look at this? Does it feel like this is trending towards this isn't doable, or does this seem like sort of the thing you should have expected to happen in a pandemic?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think that this should have been expected. I mean, you look at some of the numbers that you saw at Clemson and LSU with those surpassing in the 30s, and I believe maybe even dipping into the 40s there. So that's obviously a situation that you want to keep an eye on. And I guess I should have explained better. When I said a bleak outlook, that's just kind of the feeling going on in social media right now. And I think that again, has to do with the fact that it's Ohio State and that they're not revealing those numbers. The situation is with Clemson and LSU, what you can do is when you have those outbreaks, you can look back in 2 or 3 weeks, and if all of a sudden the testing numbers are down, the positive cases are down, and you see, maybe there's a significant decrease, just like Notre Dame earlier this week, I believe, they retested all their student athletes. There were no positives. So if you have a similar situation like that at Clemson or LSU, then that obviously provides some optimism going into the future. I do think that we should have expected this. I don't know if you should have expected it in high volumes, but when you're bringing in so many different people from so many different walks of life, different parts of the country, in some cases even internationally, to some of these programs, you have to expect that there's going to be some positive cases. The conflict here and the issue that we've always needed to keep an eye on is how do these schools handle it? Are they able to contain these outbreaks, or is this something that they just simply can't control? And so far, I don't know that we have a good answer for that. Obviously, you've seen places like Indiana, Maryland, Penn State have reported they haven't had any positive tests. You've seen, even Purdue, I think, had one or two. So in some spots, it's minimal. But the real question is going to be in 2 to 3 weeks when these students have been on campus for a month or so, doing these voluntary workouts, what do the numbers look like? And if they're decreasing, if there's no hospitalizations, if there's no deaths, then that's obviously an incredibly positive situation moving forward. So that's just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, to think that we were going to enter this and not have any positive cases or not see any schools with at least some sort of outbreak, I think would have been kind of delusional considering the how contagious this virus has been based on the data.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that I've talked about the potential effect that this will have on the eventual national championship race, because now you've got teams that their season's going to be altered, the practice schedule is going to be altered, and the Ivy League's not participating, which of course they're not usually a part of the national championship picture, but they play teams, and there's just always going to be a change, an effect. So I wonder if we do have a season, how the national championship picture is going to be changed because of this.
Yeah, and I wrote about this a few months ago. I think now at this time it seems like everything's happened at the snap of a finger. We're already in July, right? So what I think is going to happen, and Kevin Warren has played this very quietly. He hasn't said much about this situation, and this is a guy who, pretty quickly launched I don't know if it was a COVID-19 or just an infectious disease coalition. I can't remember the specific title of it. He's launched an anti-hate and racism coalition and launched a voter registration coalition. So he's done a lot of big things very quickly. The fact that he's not saying much makes me believe that there is a plan in place, a solid backup plan. Again, I've said this multiple times. I don't think you're going to see a non-conference schedule probably anywhere in college football. I think you're going to see a shift to maybe 10 conference games and maybe you play a conference championship game. But what you can do with these New Year's Six Bowls is you can have an experiment with an 18 playoff. You can have 4 of those New Year's Six Bowl games. You could play the conference champions from 5 Power 5 conferences, the highest ranked group of 5 team, and then you could save 2 at-large bids. And you could experiment that way. Then you still have those 2 bowl games in the national championship game for the semifinal round and then the championship game. I don't know as far as, players who come down with the virus and what that would look like as far as the national championship picture is concerned. But from a scheduling standpoint, I think that this is a great opportunity because, again, I really don't think you're going to see Michigan travel to Washington or Ohio State travel to Oregon and so on and so forth. But what you can do is you can have a 10-game conference schedule, take those conference champions, and let's expand the playoff here a little bit. Plus, it would be a great way for college football to make up some of that lost revenue that they'd have from some of those television deals if they do away with the non-conference schedule. So that would be my solution, but they don't listen to me. So
I agree with you about the non-conference portion, Dustin, and if they were going to add a game, and you talk about the 18 potential practicing, but I don't think they can do any of that because of the contracts, how that's all written. If they can get away, you think that they could change that stuff easily because it would be a great opportunity for that. But it's definitely going to be different this year, and the Big Ten is going to look different, and wondering how that's going to. You would think that possibly could have helped like a team like Ohio State. The Big Ten hasn't won a national championship for a while, but now they've been hit. So I don't know that there's going to be no advantage gained there. So I don't know what teams or what conference can gain an advantage here.
And it may be dictated completely on the number of cases in in COVID-19 in different parts of the region. You know, we saw the East Coast and the West Coast get hit pretty hard early on, and now you've seen chunks of the Midwest and the South get hit pretty hard, and we don't know what immunity looks like. We don't know how long those antibodies to this virus last. So it may depend solely on, you know, where's the big surge coming? Does a conference or does a team, does a state have to shut down because of a spike in cases? Can they carry on? It's going to be very interesting, and I think that those are the questions we don't have the answers to just yet. What happens if we do see a spike midway through the season? Do you just throw in the towel, or are there ways to work around this? You know, there's just so many questions right now. I don't know that you can say that there's going to be a conference or a team that's going to have an advantage from this, because, you know, we thought, you know, this thing was kind of leveling off, and we had reached we'd flattened the curve, I guess you could say. And it just looks like in some parts of the country that has happened. Some parts of the country we're seeing a decrease, in other parts we're seeing spikes. So we just really don't know where it's going to hit and when it's going to hit again. So it's really tough to forecast what that means for college football in terms of which conferences or teams could potentially have an advantage.
Dustin, you got anything that people need to know about so they can read?
You know, we just looked at Big Ten Network released an all-decade team, and I got to something that interested me was whether or not an all-Ohio State team could beat that Big Ten all-decade team, and that came out on Sunday. And then some of the for Indiana fans, some of the most explosive players in the Big Ten are poised for a big year after a year of injury, and I put Michael Penix on that list because he can throw the football around. He's an excellent fit in that offensive system, and he's a guy who can put up a lot of yards and help Indiana put up a lot of points. So those are the two big ones we got right now.
Yeah, he's definitely going to be on a lot of people's list. Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition joining us. I can't thank you enough, brother. I hope you have a great weekend.
Hey, you too, Jim and Dustin. Have a great one.
You too. There's Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition joining us, talking some Big Ten football. There's so much stuff that was going on I haven't even mentioned yet in the TBT, Dustin. Carmen's crew got upset, the Ohio State-led team, who the home court advantage even where they're playing all these games, but they're out. So let's hope that helps Mo and Remy Abel and their team as they move forward in that. It's also mentioned the 8 teams have arrived in Orlando as they get ready to prepare. One of the things I noticed on that, Dustin, some of the teams had their own practice courts flown in, and they've set them up in these hotel ballrooms. I saw the Pacers floor down there, but some haven't. But it's serious enough that they've had their own floors brought in.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the interesting thing is, though, is what do you do if you don't, you know, like if you don't bring them in? I mean, you're going to have practice floors. You know, you're going to have some facilities. I mean, all of this is makeshift. So certainly, you know, they've gotten the money to do it. You know, they've got the, you know, probably plane space to do it. So it's interesting. It seems like a big luxury to be able to, you know, to mail your whole thing down there. But it's like, I mean, they're putting a lot of these together in big old hotel ballrooms. You know, on top of carpets. It's just, it's an odd thing to look at. But it's just, I mean, again, these, you know, it's not like they have so many practice courts on Disney that, you know, that this is a luxury. They needed this to be able to give everybody a place to practice and a place to work out. It makes as much sense to give them their own courts.
We've all done this. We stayed in hotels like that, and you're walking around looking for something, and you walk into a room by mistake. Can you imagine pulling the door open to one of those practice rooms and seeing the Indiana Pacers or the Bulls or somebody? You know, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. I mean, crazy, man, crazy. Let's see. There was one other thing I wanted to get to. Mike Miller, one of your former colleagues at the Herald, had a piece out on Indiana. They spent roughly $44,000 to attend the Gator Bowl. And by that, I mean it cost them that much more than the $2.1 million that they were paid for appearing in that. Now, I don't know that that's a big deal. First time for the bowl game in a while, and it was a huge deal. So, but if they continue that, they probably need to start being a little more frugal, so it benefits them financially as well as from the marketing side.
Yeah, no, it's tough. It's for one cool to see Mike and John Bob both digging into that. because I like kind of kicked them a little bit when I left out the door. I did a ton of FOIA stuff in Tennessee, and I kind of told them, hey, you guys, this is a good move, to dig into, because I hadn't done as much when I was at the HT. So it was just cool to see them dig into it. But I looked into, when Tennessee went to the Gator Bowl a few years ago, I did a similar story, and my boss made me get every receipt. I mean, we literally looked at every single receipt from the bowl game to find out where they spent the money. And I think they had managed to profit. So obviously Tennessee played in the same game, but this is when Tennessee played in about 2015. And you'd be amazed just, again, how much it adds up. And the thing is, I mean, you got to remember, you are transporting and feeding 100 some odd players on top, and plus a larger travel party. I mean, you're bringing
probably that many or more with it.
Yeah, band, donors,
cheerleading,
staff members, like husbands and wives, of staff members also get, a seat on the travel party. And if you haven't been to one in a while, a lot of times you have a bigger travel party, and that all costs a ton of money. Like, you don't have to be throwing around on all kinds of crazy stuff. Just this stuff adds up. I mean, you end up, getting most of the meals catered at the hotel, and that costs a ton of money. It just does. It would be more expensive to go out and get everybody an individual meal. But, again, just feeding that many people, transporting that many people, housing that many people is not cheap. It just isn't. It's just tough to move that many bodies. It's big dudes, so you got to feed them well. 300-pound guys, they eat a lot. So, all of that.
Somebody worked the numbers out and said, you know what? It only comes out, because they did the meals and average, and it came out to like $42 a person. That's pretty freaking average. I mean, it's hard to eat for less than that on the road.
Yeah, no, totally. It's extremely hard. I mean, that is the way they do it is the most, frugal, economical way you could do it. And it's still a ton. It is still a ton. So yeah, you add it up, and that's just it's if you're down there for that long, it's going to cost you a lot of money. There's little things that add up. I mean, you get them bowl gifts and stuff like that come out of the school budget, and that's a thing.
100,000 on gifts.
Yeah, I believe that. No, they'll get like T-shirts and tracksuits,
Walkmans or whatever they get, all that stuff
like that.
But they definitely got $44,000 and more in advertising for the school, for the program, recruiting wise. I guarantee you, Tom Allen got $40,000 worth of advertising for his recruiting efforts in Florida alone, I would think.
Yeah, sure. Just being there again, just to be able to say that's what resonates with kids. Is what bowl game did you play in? Or do you matter? Like that's really the big question, is when you play a bowl game that matters, it helps. And you can say, all right, this is part of an upward trajectory. You're on TV, you play Tennessee tight. It matters. I mean, basically anybody down there in Florida that is interested in going up to the Big Ten, Indiana becomes an option. And so that it's a game you can't skip. And really at the end of the day, I mean, we've been talking about this for years about what these bowls cost people. It's not always the financial windfall that people hope they're going to be. But the visibility is so important, and not just, it's not so much that it makes you so much more visible as if you don't take it, it's so much worse. It's the negative there more than it's even the positive of playing it. It's like, if you don't play it, if you get a bid and skip it, like you're like, again, the kids are like, well, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? So you have to take these on. When you get an invite at a big bowl, it doesn't matter if it's going to cost you money or not. You got to do it. Again, you should probably find a way to be a little bit cheaper, but I think sometimes also they look at it, especially when it's a big bowl game and you haven't had an opportunity like that. It's like, you know what? You also get it back on the donor end, in some ways. If you bring some of the donors down and they have, or even if they just go to the game and they have a good experience, like, it gives them more of a reason to get a little bit more loose with their cash too. So all of those things make a difference. You don't know for years in advance of what the real ledger looked like in terms of how you really benefited.
Tim hit us up on the text line with a couple of things. It looks like Indiana Elite may be IU's farm team. Mike Fox stresses team play, which is great for IU. There's a little bit of truth to that, and I will be seeing Indiana Elite.
It used to be a problem. Used to call that an issue way back in the day.
No, exactly. Now it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, so it always is. I mean, it is a good thing to have a good relationship with a powerful AAU program, and everybody does.
And if you don't have that with the most powerful one in your state, you got issues.
Yeah, you do. And there's several really powerful programs in the state. And Indiana Elite has always been, for lack of a better word, the most loyal to Indiana. And I don't, that's probably an unfair way to put it, because I'm sure there's going to be some objection to that word, and that is probably taking it too far. But, Spieth, Eric Gordon All-Stars, I'm not sure if they're still the same.
EG10, yeah.
EG10 used to be a huge deal, and I think still is. I think they still got guys, but back in the day they used to be loaded. And
Jordan Halls is getting bigger and bigger. One of the kids up in Wisconsin, IU's recruiting is through the Stage 1 Academy.
All those programs matter, but Indiana Elite has been steady for a long time. They're an Adidas program, and it's not that which just requires you that, like, Archie Miller's got to be at the Adidas events. Just has to be.
It's a program, and you use the right word, program. It is a program. There's no doubt about that.
Exactly. But yeah, so Indiana Elite has produced guys for a long time. They're connected to the school. There's some alums out of that group. Everybody knows everybody. Indiana knows that they can trust Indiana Elite guys to say, okay, who's really good? Who fits us? And Indiana Elite guys will tell them. They've been there a long time. Mike Fox, Mark Adams, obviously Adams way back in the day ran into some issues about, A-Hope and the whole bit. But at the end of the day, the guy has, they have brought a lot of, they have helped Indiana get a lot of players, and they have produced a lot of players that fit what Indiana wants. So it's always good that way to see it. And it seems like they sort of went away from it for a while. I don't know if Indiana Elite had the same, punch for a few years. They're loaded again. Having Kaufman and Duncombe on the same team is really big, and they're also able to duck outside of the state borders and get some players on that team and get them some exposure to Indiana. So that obviously helps their cause as well.
Yep. Tim told me that Blake Wesley also said he's going to be playing up in Fort Wayne on Friday in another type of tournament. So we're looking forward to that. Man, I've had a blast over the last couple of days, Dustin. I hope we can do that again. Tomorrow I've got Ernie Thompson on the show, but been a great fun couple of days, man. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Look forward to doing it again. I hope everybody else goes out and has a great day. Do something nice. Say something nice to somebody and treat yourself well. Otherwise, until tomorrow, for Dustin and Jimmy, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.